So in today's video, we have Ness, Canadian singer-songwriter. Welcome to this video.
Thank you for having me.
I would like to start to ask you what inspires you to pursue a career in the music industry?
Well, it kind of just came upon me after years of being in the arts. I studied theater originally. I thought that I would be mainly in the acting, performing world, and then took a detour into music more heavily, probably around 2016, 2015, 2016. I've always made music, so that's been a thing since as long as I can remember. But in terms of professionally pursuing it as a career, yeah, I would say within the last decade, but especially more seriously in the last few years. And what drew me to it was obviously a love of music, and just that, it's this endless fountain of creation that pours out. Like I've never found that there's a shortage of material that comes out of me, whereas maybe in certain other areas it takes more effort to come up with ideas or motivation. With music, it's always just felt effortless.
Absolutely. How is being a woman in the music industry so far for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel very blessed on one hand with what I've experienced and who I've come across in the industry. But I've also experienced, sort of microaggressions mainly from men, and sort of the gatekeepers, the key holders of the industry. In terms of like, I think there's just an air at times of I know more than you. And I guess I'm specifically speaking very, very much so about men in the industry. Like I said, like on the whole, I've been very lucky, blessed with amazing people around me. I think a big part of that is going into things with a positive attitude and just like generally being an open person, a nice person, like just treating people with respect. You get respect back. But again, not always. I've definitely had some unsavory comments hurled at me, especially online, by usually angry white dudes that are like the best one, which I wanted to print in a photo on my wall and frame it because it's so funny, is some guy said,
Wow, a chick with a guitar. Nobody's into that anymore. Good luck on the way down.
like, just like, and this was after an unprovoked conversation where this guy was basically telling me,
Do you even know how to make an album? Like, this isn't easy and it costs a lot of money and there's like a lot of steps involved.
and I was like, bro, I literally just did. And who the fuck is asking you? Pardon me. And so then the classic next step for a guy like that is, oh, I'm just gonna insult her and try to make her feel small. And this happens all the time. I mean, this is like the lightest aggression that goes on, I would say, against women in the music industry. There's far worse things. But in terms of my experience so far, that's like there's always this sense, especially if I walk into a room and I know that I'm outnumbered by men in high places, it's like I sort of demand respect in a way because I don't feel insecure about what I'm doing. And I think that when you really feel secure in what you're doing, even if somebody wants to make you feel small, that they won't. And that's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of how I operate. I don't always think about it so concretely in every situation, but I think really it's like the more secure that I am, the less these things happen to me.
That's fair. But it's part of the business, I guess.
Yeah.
How do you approach the creative process if you do any ritual before you do music or you have a routine?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends what part of the creative process. Right now, it's the last year it's been creating an EP, which was very much creating a whole world. I was saying to someone recently, it was really a pleasure to have a theme because it allowed me to constantly be anchored to the theme. So I didn't have to think so much because I knew, okay, all of the creative branding and marketing around this has to do with the theme. All the song titles have to do with the theme. Obviously the lyrics have to do with the theme. how we talk about it has to do with the theme. So lately, my creative approach is like finding the common thread and the messaging with whatever I'm making, and constantly pulling from that. I have a tendency to, I'm definitely like, I feel like a jack of all trades at times, which I know many just indie artists feel like nowadays, because we have to wear so many hats. You know, you're not just the songwriter, you're probably doing a lot of the instrumentation, you're doing the vocal performance, you're the producer, you're doing the marketing, you're doing the budgeting, you're doing the branding. It's so many things. And I know people say, oh, wow, cry me a river. Like, that's just how it is. But that doesn't negate the fact that it's a lot and it's hard. And so at times I feel like I have hands in so many cookie jars, and it's hard to like focus and give things the time that they really need creatively. And one thing that's been helping me a lot recently is having that theme to go back to. So like, I'm already working on the next EP project, and immediately I was like, okay, I have the songs, what's the common thread? And I found it immediately. It was so obvious, but it just gives me a sense of relief to be like, okay, so everything revolves around this main idea, and we just pull from that.
That's good. Just to attach to your topic, that you have at least already the idea overall. When you don't have the idea, how you handle creative blocks or moments of self-doubt?
Right. Ooh, the doubt one is the hard one. I would say being physical really helps. Like, I love running. I've been a runner for quite a long time. Since high school, I've been a long distance runner. And in the last couple of years, did my first few half marathons, and I find running is like an absolutely incredible way to loosen the mind up. Like, honestly, some of my, or I thought were my best ideas were from running, and then I get home and I'm like, okay, slow down. But I get so many things just come to me when I'm moving and not distracted by technology. No phones, no screens, no talking to other people, just you and the road. So being physical and getting away from your creative environment is super important to open up ideas. And then self-doubt is hard. I've struggled with that forever. While I think a good amount of the time present a confident exterior, I definitely have a lot of self-sabotage and just, you know, worry about what I'm doing on the inside. And I think the best way to combat that is really to push through it and create no matter what, even when you're feeling like crap. Because often what happens is at the other end of that, you start feeling better and you're like, wait, I can do this. And not only can I do this, but I can do a pretty great job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's like, just doing the thing will create that sense of confidence. And then you're like, oh, I didn't have to be doubting anything. Also, something I hear a lot, I was recently at the Women in Music conference in Toronto, and one of the panelists said, nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody acts like they do in the industry, but nobody knows. Like, everyone's kind of faking it a little bit.
Yeah. But this is also in general, like many people, they are having self-doubt, like, and a lot of comparison to others. While
Yes.
at the end, everyone is just here to figure it out. Like, even people that seems that they have it all figured out, they are still discovering their path. So
Totally.
it's all about giving yourself a time and appreciating what you are doing.
Yeah.
You said about how you, as an independent artist, you are wearing all the hats of basically the record label, that's why it's really difficult to be an independent artist. What do you think the music industry should do to be fair for independent artists?
For indie artists, well, I think first of all that the big thing on everybody's tongue in the music industry is streaming. I'm seeing a lot of great sort of activism and mobilization of people online about trying to create a fair wage for streaming, because as we all know, even some of the biggest artists in the world with millions and billions of streams still, based on those streams, wouldn't be making a livable wage per year based on those numbers. And so I think that's a big, huge one. I just saw James Blake, who's one of my favorite modern artists, create a new platform for artists to release music in a different way. It is behind a paywall. I think it's such a complex issue to figure out, like, should it be on the consumer to pay the livable wage, or should it be on the I think, of course, it should be on the corporations to change their pay structure and just like realize that their companies wouldn't exist if artists didn't make music. So pay the artists fairly. Hello. Why doesn't this make sense? Well, of course, because it's all about profit for them. So I think changing streaming rights and then also allowing spaces and places to grow the live music scene. Like it's been really hard, the pandemic, on live music spaces, but at the end of the day, people still want to be physically together to experience music. So we need to really put more funding, whether it's government funding, grants, etc., into making and keeping alive live music spaces for indie artists to grow an audience, for indie artists to like network with new fans. And even though it's easier than ever to reach people, it's also really hard because it's easier. Like there's so many people doing it.
Yeah.
There needs to be more fairness. There needs to be the right people in charge of these social media and streaming platforms, etc., who are actually artists first people to help like balance the playing field, because it's just crazy. It's like, we're out here pouring heart and soul into the art, and then also whatever little money we have into ads and all this stuff in the hopes that it reaches an audience. It's like, just pay them artists fairly and see what happens. See how the landscape completely changes when artists can breathe for a second and be like, okay, like my efforts actually go somewhere. I can actually live. I can actually pay for rent instead of scrapping away.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and record labels. I mean, I used to think, like many artists, that was the be all end all. Like that's what you should shoot for. But now we're seeing that they're not necessary. Of course, huge asset at a certain time in people's career. For some, not others. We've seen huge artists who are still independent, like famous artists, musicians. I think about Chance the Rapper.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I don't know if today he's still independent, but for many years he was, and he's massive. And it's like, people do it without labels. We shouldn't be emphasizing so much. Like, I think it has to do with the cool factor a lot of like, I'm signed. I got signed. But it's just like, it's very possible to succeed. And we see that on TikTok, artists who are blowing up overnight. And again, that's not everybody, it's a few, but still genuinely incredible artists that are getting the press, booking the tours, all of that without a label.
Yeah, I feel like since I started to study music business and management, I came up into what is the reality of the music industry. And I've been sold to the ideas, oh, I should get assigned and things like that. While now I'm trying more to advocate for every artist to become instead independent and go through a course like mine, like this, all the inside outs of the business. But I mean, it's not meant for everybody because it's really a hard job to be an independent artist. You are doing a job of a record label with probably 8 employees. But anyway, thank you for that answer. I saw that your music has been played in Canada and as well internationally. Yeah. How do you feel about the reception your music has received internationally?
Very excited. Especially because it's had reach in the UK, which is a market and part of the world that I love and want to tour in. So I don't know if you know, but I've spoken with Queen Sound about wanting to figure out how I can get over there and tour, because I was just there. I've been to the UK, different parts of the UK throughout my life. I think there's a great appreciation for music in that region of the world that excites me, and to have radio play and to have a little growing fan base there is really, really exciting. Of course, I would love to tour all of Europe, but the UK has kind of stood out since I've been releasing my recent music. And yeah, it's just great.
Mm-hmm. And what do you hope your listeners or viewers take away from your work?
Yeah, I just love to move people. I mean, that at the end of the day, that's how I feel about music. I love when it moves me in whatever direction. And with the last project, with working hours. I was really telling a story, so I just hope that it connects with people and moves people, especially women. It's dedicated to women in the service industry. So anytime a woman reaches out with any comments about having listened to the song and the story that touched them, that's like, it's just incredible. It's like a drug. So I just want it to affect people and also cause conversations, because some of the songs dig a bit deeper into some of the problematic realities of being a woman in the world and being a woman in that industry. And I can't wait to continue to make more music that sparks emotions and conversation. So
Amazing. Can you share a particular memorable experience you encountered that influenced your artistic journey?
there's so many. Well, I'll talk about the most recent one. Last weekend, we shot a music video. I applied for this big grant, didn't get it, and somehow figured out how to put a team together of creatives here in Vancouver. And we had an entire crew. We had full deal director, assistant director, lighting, actors. We had 2 locations, and most people did it out of the joy of the project and the experience. And I was just so overwhelmed with how awesome everybody was and everyone's attitude. And it's just really exciting to do work with people, because the EP Working Hours was very much me alone for a long time. And so to do something so kind of big and creative with a crew was just like the best feeling, and it makes me want to do more and more. So
That's
that was awesome.
Thank you so much, Ness, for spending some time or speaking about you and your artistry. And hopefully I will see you the next festival.
Yes, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to grow with Queen Sound.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.